Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Santosh. My co-panelist, Professor Manish. Thanks to Professor Monan Pillai, all my former colleagues and teachers whom I look up to. Some of our students are also here. Professor Arvind is here, Professor Chintamani, and many others whom I've learned from. Mine is more specific to the Viksit Bharat idea of 2047. That's how it's been titled as Blue Economy and Strategic Autonomy. Can maritime growth secure India's economic and energy future is what I'm trying to look at. The presentation just runs through the components of strategic vision and economic content, defining the blue economy, which partially the chair did. I'll just probably contrast with some of those. The type of maritime infrastructure and the development that we are looking at, what are the security challenges and the naval capabilities that we possess and what we need to do. In the previous session also, Professor Chintamani Mahapatra just highlighted the differences between three different nations, looking at the US, which is at the primordial power, where China is also trying to catch up with them, and then we are way back in that one, but we are also trying to go in that way. At least there is some amount of clarity where we are heading to, and then the pathways to 2047, the type of opportunities and constraints. Looking at the first part, that is strategic context and economic imperative, the strategic vision has been already given by the Honorable Prime Minister through different documents and other things. It's about India's development blueprint, the shift that has been there for a very long time on the land-centric approach to placing maritime domain at the heart of national statecraft, as well as the strategic autonomy that it anticipates by 2047. The core premises to essentially establish that maritime power is no longer peripheral but central to economic resilience, energy security, and also geopolitical positioning in the whole of the Indo-Pacific region itself. That's been spoken. The dependence, if we look at trade by volume, that is sea-based, is around 90% that we are trying to look at. Trade by value is around 70%. That's also again the figures that come in. And then the 4%, it's only budding concept, and then we are just picking it up as of now. So the blue economy contribution to the GDP is hardly somewhere around 4%, but the anticipation is that it will rise over a period of time, and there where economic resilience will come. In terms of the energy security vulnerabilities, we have the crude oil imports, because 85% is imported via maritime routes, creating critical dependence on the sea lanes itself. In terms of the natural gas imports, we have 50% of the natural gas imported as LNG through the maritime channels. And there are choke points which since last morning, we've been already speaking from the inaugural session to everything. It's a known factor here. In terms of the traditional definition, if you look in, sustainability focused concept primarily concerned with fisheries and coastal ecosystem management was what was spoken about the blue economy. But in terms of the contemporary definition, if we get stuck there, perhaps we will not be able to move forward, will not be able to achieve what we anticipate to achieve by 2047. So that's been redefined as geo-economic strategy involving ports, offshore energy, seabed minerals, undersea digital infrastructure, and also the digital use assets. This is the newer way India is trying to approach the whole maritime domain, more specifically the blue economy itself. In terms of the strategic components of the economy, if you look in, we have the components of the ports and logistics, where trade resilience and supply chain security is what we are trying to look at. This has also been spoken on the Sagar Mala, when we have the Vilinam, Vadavan, and all this coming in. In the offshore energy, if you look in, we want to reduce the import dependence. That's around 85% of the oil itself. We have the Mumbai High KG Basin and also the offshore wind. In terms of the seabed minerals, we have the critical minerals for the energy transition, and this is central to the Indian Ocean Basin itself in terms of the key initiative. And digital infrastructure, 95% of the global data traffic happens in this particular component. That's why submarine cable, landing points have become very critical. We have of late seen in different places, whether it is in the South China Sea, somewhere else in Europe, somewhere suddenly we see the seabed cables and other things being interrupted. One of the studies says that this is, infrastructure is also created by the Chinese, and they themselves are the ones who are also damaging it and subsequently being called for repair to many other things. This is a common factor that's been happening. So nations need to work on this one. In terms of the shipping, we have the economic lifeline and the slot security itself. So merchant fleet expansion is the initiative that's been taken over a period of time. In terms of the strategic autonomy, so far what we have seen, this is a used and abused concept in international relations, and more specifically, every country seems to be customizing it. It represents material capacity for independent decision making, secured through economic resilience and control over maritime flows rather than traditional non-alignment. That's how it's been able to survive different phases, different ideology, different phases of international politics itself. In terms of the traditional view, it is diplomatic non-alignment and political independence in foreign policy decision. From the maritime view, if we have to look at strategic autonomy itself, is control of critical infrastructure, energy security, and also freedom of navigation at the vital sea lane. This is exactly what we intend to do when it comes to the understanding of the strategic autonomy itself. In terms of the development initiative and infrastructure, if you look in at the scale of the whole program, in terms of the number of flagship programs, there are 802 projects across multiple maritime states and coastal regions itself. The investment is tuned to somewhere around 5.53 lakh crore that's committed to port modernization and connectivity. Though we started looking at this late, but I think we are doing considerable amount of work with regard to this one. The objective is very clear that port-led industrialization and comprehensive logistic optimization has to happen. This morning, I was just trying to have a conversation that we have the port here, but at the same time, the products that come, we were just taking an estimation of how much it would cost to get products from Palakkad to Villinam port. This just doesn't make sense. In many other countries, if you look in, and even in our own country, in some other ports, you will also see the industry being located in the immediate closest spaces. And now that would reduce the logistical component. Now, for a freight perhaps to come from Palakkad to Villinam port, it would cost not less than 1.5 lakh to 1.8 lakh. Now, that itself is a huge cost, which we perhaps have to put. Industrialization has to happen. There is no way that you will have your economic corridor elsewhere and then you have port somewhere else and then you anticipate that we cut the costs and then we will be able to go forward. I think there have to be some augmentation with regard to this. In terms of the Maritime Amritkal Vision 2047, the transformation goals have been is essentially to create a total investment target of around 10 lakh crore and 20 million job creation projection. That's exactly where it's heading to. And 3,300 TPA, that's the port capacity that they already anticipated by 2026, but they will be further augmenting in the times to come. The idea is very clear that we need to become we need to position ourselves in the maritime power domain and maritime position, and this has been something that has been spoken in quite often in number of forums with regard to the Minister of External Affairs, Minister of Shipping, and many other places, because this requires an augmentation of multiple ministries coming together to make this happen itself. In terms of the offshore energy and deep sea resources, 70 gigawatts potential capacity for renewable energy generation, reducing fossil fuel dependence and also enhancing energy security has been the core concern of the offshore wind. When it comes to the deep sea mining, Central Indian Ocean Basin spanning around 75,000 square feet kilometer is allocated for the polymetallic nodule extraction and also the critical mineral resources. As of now, we're trying to buckle up with this. It will take a while for us to, but I think the objectives have been given clear, and I think the positioning is clear. I think the pitching is also going in the right direction. In terms of the traditional assets, we already spoke about the Mumbai and the KG Basin. They continue to work as established with regard to the offshore hydrocarbon produce centers, and they've been doing comparatively better, though I don't claim that they're doing phenomenally great. In terms of the undersea digital infrastructure, this has become a new frontier of geopolitics. It's going to determine a lot of things in the future to come in. Now, submarine cables carry not less than 95% of the global data traffic, making their protection essential for digital sovereignty and also the national security itself. Because the critical nodes, if you look in Mumbai, Chennai, Cochin, these are the ones which are serving as major submarine cable landing points. At the same time, the security risks include physical sabotage, surveillance threats, and also landing stations vulnerabilities itself, because now these form as part of the critical infrastructure. Now, critical infrastructure itself as a definition, it started off with very small few things I still remember when Professor Arvind started pushing students to work on critical infrastructure, people just did not even know what these were. And there it was limited to some of the nuclear installations, power grids, and few other things. I think over a period of time, we have made it more comprehensive to include more and more critical components coming in, and that's where the vulnerabilities are there. That's how perhaps we need to imagine, at least in the academic domain, to pitch for certain objectives to be taken by the government. Otherwise, if we work only on the facts of the present day, we'll not be able to give any sort of vision, is what I feel here. Now, the national priority is to make sure that the undersea cable protection is taken care of, which has become almost integral to defense and intelligence strategy itself. Now, the China factor, as the former ambassador also said, that how many times we have invoked in the last, let's say, 24 hours or 26 hours. It's even in the private conversation, it's in the main domain conversation, everywhere we have been seeing this one. And the BRI has been that way, the dual use components. But all said and done, there are certain disadvantageous positions that we have to admit to. There is no way that we can rub our chest thump here and say that we have overcome many of these things. We have the Gwadar with regard to Pakistan strategic port with naval implications. We have the Myanmar component here, access to the Bay of Bengal and the energy corridor, which is also becoming problematic. And we have already known about Hambantota a number of times. It's been spoken. With regard to Djibouti is also the same case of concern here. In terms of the responses that we are coming up with over a period of time, we have the Saga vision, which is also something that's been spoken a lot well into that one. In terms of the institutional reforms, I think post-2008 Mumbai attacks, I think we have been making some inroads and we have been establishing. I think though the NAT grid is still not up to the mark the way we anticipated, but I think still it is able to bring in some amount of value. In terms of the regional alliance, we have Quad, IPMDA. These serve as force multipliers for maritime domain awareness and also the coordination. In terms of the mission Sagar, HADR component is massively working here, less acknowledged, but India is doing its best in whatever way it is possible, because this is much more on the goodwill component. We've been trying to help our neighbors on many occasions. I think it's a combination of both, what we perhaps want to call it in the traditional terms as, let's say, Shastra and Shastra. I think we are trying to do both of them, a combination of both, where you have to be on the military side of the story and you also have to be on the humanitarian side of the story. I think we are able to do that one, though we still haven't upgraded ourselves to the net security provider, but at least the first responder is a possibility. That's where India is aiming at this juncture. This is something that I thought we can, I can just put it up for a display, but all said and done, this is a comparison one. If you look in terms of looking at benchmarker or looking at even the type of competitors that we have, we need to catch up a big time on this one, maybe half of it what we have as of now. If you look in, we're improving, as I said, that we still lag behind countries like Singapore or Shanghai, in terms of cities that are able to hold in. But already these gaps exist, but these gaps also will motivate us to take forward and then augment many of the things. I just wanted to flag a few things because I was certainly sure that in number of sessions these would come back and forth in many other papers as well. Just to conclude, pathways to 2047, if you look in, we need a coherent geostrategic planning where policy integration happens across ministries. That's where most of them are stuck. When we discuss with bureaucrats, when we discuss with people at the helm of affairs, what they put up is some sort of helplessness that they are unable to coherently work together. I hope it will all fall in line and maybe in a period we'll be able to get this done. Naval power integration, combining commercial growth with military capability, I think we need to learn, we need to catch up with, we need not feel morally constrained about it. I think we need to go a little more ballistic about and then achieve some of these things. Indigenous technology, now reducing dependence on foreign expertise in terms of the deep sea and then port automation. I think we need to do that one. Yesterday, though in the presentation, it looked like the type of instruments that we are using in the port and everything. At the end of the day, these are Chinese made only. And at the end of the day, these are still not indigenous technologies. I think that part is still not covered. It has to be given enough consideration, though that was not flagged as such, but that's very, very important. And at the end of the day, it also has to be for the sustainable development, because though it's our core premise and it's for our national interest, but it cannot be just the very narrow national interest. It has to be from an enlightened national interest where balancing infrastructure with coastal ecology, and also making sure that the 30 million fisheries livelihood is also taken care of. That's the reason where maritime growth must be holistically integrated to secure India's strategic autonomy by 2047, and maritime domain and the blue economy is going to play the exemplarily vital role is my submission. Thank you for your patient listening.